Live streaming for the first time. This is the Trending Insurrection. We are on. Go for it.
Hey,
Do your thing.
we're live, baby. We haven't started yet, have we?
We have just started. We are now on the internet. We are live streaming.
on the internet.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Well,
Live and in color.
I could hit the button, so I did hit the button. You know what I mean? Like,
Why did you hit the button? I'm not ready for the button.
I know that, but we are always ready for the button. So here's what I'm thinking. Right? We were talking about something the other day. We were talking about. Remember what we were talking about on the phone yesterday?
Yes. No, I don't.
Actually,
remember.
I don't remember either. I wanted to talk about that.
It was wonderful. You said you wanted to talk about, but actually, I want to talk about the thing in Buffalo. We got to talk about. We have to address what's happening in Buffalo today.
Well,
this is going on live, so we got to talk about it.
There are things happening
5 hours ago.
all
this
over.
happened. 6 hours ago, this happened.
Yep.
And I just think that we are not showing the world heard the commercial, the softer side of Sears.
We are definitely not showing the world the softer side of the United States.
No, we are not. We can't. At this point, it looks as if we don't have a right to complain to anyone about human rights violations.
Well,
it really looks kind of bad. I mean, it's looking really bad for us to police the world and say, you're doing so-and-so, when we allow this to happen in our own country.
Yeah,
And,
we were.
It's looking bad. It's looking bad.
So if anybody hasn't seen the video in Buffalo, just go on Twitter. It's there. It's all over the place.
Yes.
It is basically there's an old man in the way of some advancing police officers, and they just kick him down. They just kick him, knock him down on the ground. He falls down, hits his head, and is now in the hospital, as far as I know.
He's bleeding. The guy's bleeding.
Yeah.
And they don't even acknowledge him. And they keep on walking.
They did keep on walking.
They keep on walking. Walk on by. I couldn't believe it. It was so preposterous. I had to laugh when I saw it. I said, really? This is what we've come to.
Here's kind of the thing. Like, I'm not a big fan of this. I really am. I'm upset that there's so much going on, right? And what we have, it seems like the police have reacted. So initially some protests started, and then some rioting and looting started, some arson. They were burning down buildings. A lot of stuff that is definitely unconscionable and bad. And then the police seem to have reacted by going after the easiest targets they could go after. Little old men. There's a photojournalist who got shot with a rubber bullet and lost her eye.
Horrible.
It's actually... So all of the stuff that's happening is unconscionable. And you made the point that even in Tiananmen Square...
The tank wouldn't run over the guy.
But the cops are running over people. The cops are, like, shooting at people. I saw one video. They're just running down the street, and they shot at somebody on their own porch. Like, they're just sitting on their porch, and the cop just turns and starts firing rubber bullets at them. This is insane.
Okay, so I remember watching. Guys, you remember? I think it was the second Michael Bay Transformer movie, and I don't know the names of all the characters.
It was Transformers 2.
Transformers 2. Okay. All the characters. It was a Transformer movie, and it was the Decepticon that disguised itself as a police car. And instead of protect and serve, I think it had destroy and enslave.
Yes.
And I thought that was really clever. But you know what? We've had many conversations. I don't believe the police are now interested. Clearly, they're not interested in protecting and serving. Because when that old man was knocked down, if they were protecting and serving, their first thought was to say, wait a second, let's make sure he's okay. And there are stories, by the way, of police officers doing that.
Right.
I won't say they're all. There was one gentleman, one protester was bloodied, and the policeman drove him out of the line of fire. And said, hey, make sure you're okay, and then sent him home.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that all the police are doing this.
Some police have actually been acting very well. There was a case where there was a peaceful protest, and then there was a Antifa instigator that got into the
Yes.
crowd. And this is really one of the things I think we got to talk about is these instigators that are happening, because some of them are Antifa, and it seems that
They're anarchists by design.
it seems that, and this is, well, I don't know that we've got any proof of current police sending people in as agent provocateurs, but that is a known tactic that has occurred in the past.
Yes.
So I think there is I'm not even going to say that we need to talk practically about any particular situation, but theoretically about what would be the ramifications if that happens. But I think one of the main problems that we have with police at the moment is that when I was in the Marine Corps, we were taught that our actions reflected upon the uniform that we wore. And every Marine wears the same uniform, and when we're in a foreign country, our reputation is whatever it is of the Marines. Like, people don't know us as individuals, they know us as Marines. So, if you act badly as a Marine in uniform on foreign soil, you get that reputation. The same thing is actually true of police. When police do something that diminishes the reputation of something, they end up diminishing the reputation of the uniform that they wear.
That's right.
And that's the important point.
Which is why I don't condone this,
Right.
but I understand it, which is why the rioters burned down the police station.
Well, yes, and this is my point. My point, because I mean, obviously that's how humans react to that. My point is that if you're a good police officer, you need accountability for police, because you need those bad police officers to be held accountable. You see, the problem right now is the reputation of police keeps taking hit after hit after hit, and there's nothing that mitigates this. You know, when they push an old man over and bust his skull, or they
keep on walking. No. Push a ball man over
Right.
and bust his skull, and do not react
And
to
let's-
the offense,
and let's not-
keep on walking.
Let's not forget the original offense, kneeling on a guy for 8 minutes, 3 minutes after you can't feel a pulse and he's not responding to anything. I mean, how can you...
How do you justify in front? Wait. It's
In
worse.
front of cameras.
It's worse.
Right.
You knew you were being filmed.
They did.
So you believe you can do this with impunity?
They do. But the truth is they can. Right now, there really isn't, like, even... Okay, and a lot of people have said this, too. They said, well, he's being tried now. He's being charged. Why are you rioting? Look, they originally didn't want to charge him. They originally said that drugs in the victim's system, that is the George, the black man that died, drugs in his system exonerate the officer. That's what the prosecutor was saying. You can just kill somebody if they're on drugs. That
Yeah,
is
that's
not...
it.
I mean, technically that's not fair. He was saying that...
it's like David Chappelle. It's crackle-lated in. You said you
sprinkle on-
break into
This time
somebody's
it was
house.
fentanyl,
yeah,
right?
break into somebody's house and kill him and just sprinkle some crack and say it's crack-related, drug-related.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
it's the same thing.
Well, I mean, Philando Castile, if you go back, you look at the same issue. Philando Castile, the reason that the jury found that officer innocent, was twofold, right? So, one, they didn't show the video evidence of what happened because it's clear on the video that he's murdered the guy.
Yep.
And they didn't show that to the jury because it would be, quote-unquote, prejudicial. How do you like that standard? If you're a cop and you do something wrong, showing a video of you doing that thing wrong is quote-unquote prejudicial. It's crazy.
That's a judge in your pocket.
And then, well, it was a judge and a prosecutor, because the prosecutor did not appeal that decision. That is a case pivotal decision, and if you are a prosecutor worth your salt, you know that. If you're actually trying to get a conviction, you go to the appeals court and you say, hey, listen, the judge said this, and I just can't.
This is unacceptable.
It's completely unacceptable. And then the second thing that they did in that case was they pointed out that he was on marijuana. And that, basically...
Kill him.
It had nothing to do with his behavior, but that wasn't seen as prejudicial.
No.
How could that not be prejudicial?
No.
And the prosecutor
No,
really
because-
should have objected to that piece of information coming in.
He's a drug user. They deserve what they get.
So right now, this is the standard police stance, is that anybody who commits a crime and then tests positive for drugs is a justified killing. And that's not the case.
But let me backtrack to the let me backtrack to the crisis of the wall. When you were putting kids in cages, and it was okay because they were bad people anyway, bad hombres, as our great leader said.
Well, I don't think anybody actually said that it was okay to put kids in cages because they were bad hombres.
My
Because the
point
kids
is
aren't
that
bad hombres.
I know that, but my point is that that's the whole thing. That was the thing. They deserve what they get because they're legal anyway.
Well,
So whatever you do to them is totally justified. I mean, after all, prison's not supposed to be a palace; it's prison.
I don't.
And so
well, the kids aren't technically supposed to be in prison, right? And don't get me wrong, they have certain government purchased things like they basically had the water recycling thing that had like the water
toilet
fountain on top
and the water fountain
and the
on
toilet
top.
on the bottom.
Wow.
No, but that is a standard government issue thing, right? And actually, as it turns out, like in Arizona and New Mexico, those are actually much more common than we realize here because water is more of a scarce resource. So they do that. And the first, I heard some people talking online about the first time they actually encountered that was at like a hippie commune type of thing because it was quote unquote green. Now, I personally think it's terrible.
Gross.
I think it's terrible. But I would hate to be in a situation where I had to actually use one of those more than once.
Yeah, but my point is that when you begin, what happens is, and I've said this before on the show, when you create the systematic, I'm painting a picture, the systematic rape and abuse of slaves in America made it possible for their masters to systematically abuse their wives because evil always wants more. It's never, and so
What?
all of a,
No.
and
What are you talking? What?
Yeah.
I gotta call BS on that
Nope,
because I
not
actually
true.
happen
not,
to know
not true. When you
that
what you
men were abusing their wives way before slavery.
I didn't say that they weren't.
Okay.
I'm saying that the
There
system,
is actually a thing called the rule of thumb.
the system that allowed that to happen.
Well, no, the
You
system.
in other words, you create a when you do something. It's common psychology. When
Men-
you do something, you create a hunger for
this may be
abuse
something
and
you are
rape.
not aware of, but men in the United Kingdom, men in England, used to actually be able to sell their wives
That's right.
if they got tired of them.
That's right.
They would auction them off.
Yes, for the price of less.
I think actually
for less than a horse.
Okay, but here's the thing: less than a horse. But your
What I'm saying.
cause and effect is backwards
Nope.
because they were doing this thing to the wives way
Nope.
longer
Hear
than
me-
they were
hear
doing
me
it to
carefully.
slaves.
You're missing the point.
Okay.
I didn't say it caused it. I said the systematic abuse of one thing, of that, creates a pattern of abuse.
But a creation
that
is
will
a form of cause, and that's a causal
in the
relationship.
situation where you feel that this person is not a human, even though it's really a person, and then you can beat the snot out of them for whatever and take them away and use them as within the hearts and the minds of the slave owners, it creates a pattern of abuse that goes down the genetic line. That applies itself to.
Wait a minute. I'm going to call BS on one more thing.
Nope, sorry.
Goes down the genetic line?
Yep.
I think-
the Bible says third and fourth generation. It's called a genetic trait. The trait travels.
Well,
if you're an
The
alcoholic,
Bible does not talk about genetic traits.
yes, it does.
It doesn't talk about.
Yes, it does. In Exodus, it says upon third and fourth generation.
I understand the scripture you're talking about. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily genetic. It's more like if your dad does a thing and teaches you to do a thing, you'll do the thing too.
No, it's in
and
your.
you'll teach your kids to do
It's
the
in
thing.
your genes, just like alcoholism is. They say it's in your genes. That you're predisposed. So if you.
Well, it's more mimetic than genetic.
I disagree. I believe it's both. I think it's nurture and nature. It's both nurture and nature. Okay,
Well, we're having fun.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, we can argue about that all day long. But my point is that now, so you take that and then you created abuse. So just hear me out.
Okay.
Okay. So you create a system of abuse. I'll explain.
Right.
I've said so in the show. When it was okay to abuse black people as far as the police officers were concerned.
I'm gonna stop you one more time. It was never okay.
Oh, come on.
And I'm just messing with you.
Yeah,
but I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
it was okay.
It was accepted.
It was accepted. It's okay to do so and so. It's okay. No.
Right.
He was a drug addict. He was a so and so. He was a bad. And all the white people would say, not all, but would say, oh yeah, the police, they don't abuse people. Those people have it coming because they're bad people. Until you start filming it now, and all of a sudden, you're starting to abuse white people. The police officers have been able.
You're a little too happy about that.
No, I'm saying. Oh no, I'm not happy. I'm saying all of a sudden, you got a nice old man walking on the street.
This is not.
And they knock the dude down.
This is not
and
how
keep on
Dr. Martin
walking.
Luther King Jr. wanted us to fulfill his dream.
We don't want that type of equality.
We want everyone will be treated equally badly by the police.
Exactly. We're not. This is
that's
horrible.
not what we're looking for.
This is, but that's what happened. So I always say to those in power, whether no matter to the ruling class, and this is what Chappelle was talking about in one of his videos. But I think it's a reverse effect. When you create a pattern of abuse, everybody's going to run through that same pattern. You saw it in the Hunger Games, when the woman, when the opposition finally came into power, she herself says, "We're going to do the Hunger Games now," and the girl shot her because she was thinking, "You're no better," because you're creating a system of abuse, which is why when apartheid fell, you use the people who are part of the system are also victims, at the perpetrators and those who are being perpetrated upon.
Well,
They're all victims of the system, and until you break the system,
until Katniss took that major step at the end of the story, I didn't know why she was the main character. I was sitting there thinking to myself, it's all right. She's okay. She's doing a thing. She's freaking out her way through a terrible situation. But, all right. She did all right. But why is she a main character? She doesn't have the steel, the inner fortitude that I expect from a main character.
Yes.
And when this other person, I don't even remember who that other character was, but it was I've called this out, or I've recognized this. I've seen that this is the case. Like, people want to throw off oppression, but then the moment they throw it off, they want to oppress their neighbor.
Exactly.
We saw this in Libya. We saw it in Iraq. We've seen it all over the place.
That's
Everywhere
right.
we've tried to free people, they immediately say, "Thank you for the freedom. We will now oppress this other person over here."
exactly.
And I don't.
It's the
I don't get it.
The alphabet people are doing the same exact thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, but I get that.
They're doing the same. Oh, you've kept us from jobs because we're gay. Well, if you bash us, we'll keep you from working. I mean, it's the same cycle of abuse.
Even if you just disagree with their principles and it is that month. It is that month where we support and celebrate the existence of no-eyed laws. Anyway,
and that's the problem, because when we allow people to abuse other, and that's what I've said so many times in the show, what you're creating,
right,
is a system of belief and a system of cause and effect that those in power will use against you eventually, because you've said that if you speak against the regime,
right,
you are we can take your power, we can take your ability to work,
and we see that
and to
with
make
a
money
lot
away.
of these tech companies, right? That they're banning people like Alex Jones, and they're throwing people off their platform.
That's right.
You see, the thing is, I don't even get Alex Jones. I kind of get Alex Jones because he was the most ridiculous person that they could possibly ban. So they went after him, and they said, all right, well, let's ban this guy and see if we can get away with it. And then they did. And then they said, oh, well, I guess then we can just start banning all kinds of other people.
That's right.
And that bothers me. I really don't like that. And I think that one of the major things they have to realize is that right now the left seems to control Silicon Valley, but if they continue to do this, what they're going to do is they're going to inspire right wingers to come up and start building systems that rival the left wing systems. And then what we're going to have is we're going to have a different kind of censorship. And I don't want any censorship. I'm completely like, I want these to be open platforms. And I think that actually recently the president put out an executive order that I really like. It really, I think, hit the nail on the head. It talked about the law in Section 230 and what it's supposed to be, and it understood Section 230 and then says, okay, now, if you violate this, if you go off and you decide that you're going to censor people, you're going to remove content that is not in any way objectionable, not porn, not child abuse,
Indeed.
not profanity in any way, shape, or form, just you don't like the opinions, then you're not a platform anymore. Now you're a publisher. And that is exactly the balance that needed to be struck, and they did that. And I'm really impressed.
That's great. That's a great ruling.
This is, well, it's not a ruling, it's an executive order, right? So it's not necessarily like a judge said this. It was the President of the United States that said this. And he issued this order to the SEC, who is the regulatory body that handles things that are on the internet. So
That's a great order. I like it. I think the Supreme Court needs to back that up with a decision.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be a decision.
Well, it does need to be a decision. At the same time, the executive order is the right first step. And the thing is, I was going to say this. I like, I'm not necessarily. I'm okay with Trump. I'm fine with Trump. Trump's all right. He's not terrible. He's a good guy. He definitely has some weaknesses, and specifically in the area of civil rights that we talk about and is so important to us. So, he said the other day, I heard he said this. I don't know that he said this, but in a meeting with the governors, he said you have to dominate these people. Like really kind of indicating that civil rights is not the way to go. Respecting civil rights is not the way to go. Now, I think that the answer is surgical. You have to understand who's committing crimes.
Hold up for a second.
Yes?
I need to stop for a second.
Okay.
I believe that this is the talk of most people in power. And it's not just for black people. I believe it's for all people. Because, as I said, you create a pattern. I believe that you say it yourself in one of your logos, citizens are not slaves.
Right. That's the other channel, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and so I believe that this is based. Now, see, what you do is you whet the appetite for the blacks, because we don't like the blacks. The minority, the Asians and the so-and-so. We don't like them, so we'll whet the minority. But what you're really doing is you're salting the taste buds to allow this type of behavior. And if it's fine for them, then it's going to be fine for citizens are slaves, and we can push them down. We're not to protect them. We're supposed to enslave. And I think that is so. I do believe that they say you need to control your population.
Some people, I'm sure, say that.
I believe some of them do. I believe so.
Some people say that you should put salt in hot cocoa. I mean, like I'm not sure what. There's a lot of people say just about anything, right? Like so.
You saw the Bloomberg video.
Yeah,
that's a well-to-do guy saying basically
a governor.
That's right. A well-to-do man in power. This is how a lot of rich people feel about the poor. Walmart is a prime example of a store that I shop at and love to shop at, but really does not.
I have not been there in like 3 months.
Yeah, people are sheep basically to that. Sheep for the slaughter to be shorn. And there was a time when they were saying that Walmart was one of the best places to work. Remember that back in the days?
Yeah, when the original. Okay, well, in that I can tell you exactly what happened there. When somebody is building something, he has a vision for it. He knows how to make it work, and he can treat people well and still accomplish the goal. When other people take over, like particularly his kids, right? They don't know how to make that vision work. They're now running it, and they have somebody running it who doesn't understand the original vision of the store, and all they understand is efficiency and profit.
Yes.
And then once you get that, and this is why people say that generational wealth, generally speaking, most generational wealth fails after about 3 generations, because at about 3 generations, somebody is screwing things up. Now, there are occasionally generational wealth holdings that find good management over long periods of time, and the people who are in those trust funds and so forth will accept it because it's basically the deal they're given. Like, hey, listen, we're going to give you millions of dollars. You just have to
Live this way.
live a certain way. You can't take too much out at a time. It's a trust. You have to request the money, and somebody gives you distributions and so forth, and then it's great that it works, right? And then some of these last for a very long time, but most of them fail after about 3 generations.
Because one of the problems is, and I want to circle this back, and I think this is a great segue back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this segment, and because you are not teaching the ideals upon which the system was first founded, and so
Right.
when you do not teach it, it becomes dissolved with each reiteration generationally, because it's not being properly taught. The ideals are not being properly passed on from child
And what's
to
not
child
being
to child.
taught, I think, is especially if somebody is spending that much time building something. What I've seen is that they don't have time to teach their own family. And I know that this is something that a lot of people have come up against. My dad actually was a youth pastor, and he was spending a lot of time training up other kids. And he decided at some point when I was starting to grow up that he didn't want. He was looking around and he saw the other pastors' kids, and they were terrible. And he said, I don't want my kid to turn out like that. So he actually quit that and became a teacher. So it gave him a lot more free time to rein me in, right?
He reined you in?
Oh, I was a terror.
I
was an absolute terror.
You're a terror now.
Well, but I'm unconstrained at the moment. I mean, that's really, my dad can no longer constrain me. He's lost the fight.
Well, you've grown.
He taught me things
You're
that were
taller than
important for
him
me
now.
to know.
No, yeah. All jokes aside, yeah, I feel you.
So let's get back to the other thing, though. Like, we were talking about all this, the police brutality.
And this all cycles right back to that.
Right.
And the reason it cycles back to it, because you create a pattern of abuse, and then you're not teaching. Remember how many times back in the 70s and 80s, the television shows you used to watch, did they say protect and serve, protect and serve, protect and serve, protect and serve?
The courts have ruled that police actually have no duty to protect and serve,
Which
is crazy.
What year was that ruled?
It's been several times. Several courts have done this. The most recent was the one. It was the ruling of the court in the Miami mass shooting at the school down there. Remember the one where like David Hogg became famous?
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what it is, but the police officer was found to be on camera hiding in a stairwell or something like that. I mean, the armed officer at the school was hiding in a stairwell. The officers who were armed, who showed up at the scene, stayed outside for too long, like a couple minutes, and while kids were inside being murdered by a shooter. And, this is kind of where we got, a lot of people started saying, like, you need to let teachers exercise their Second Amendment right. And you don't need all teachers to do it. You just need the few.
Remember your birthday? We were arguing about that around the table.
Yeah, my sister's a teacher and she didn't want to do it. My dad's a teacher and he didn't really feel like doing it. And I said, I don't care because neither of you were the ones who I want to do it. I want the person who believes in their Second Amendment right and knows how to do this, has a concealed carry permit, to be able to do that at the school, so that if one of these situations arises, I mean, we've seen, this is actually crazy, we've seen teachers give their lives for the kids.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm saying those teachers, give them a chance to win that fight.
Yeah.
Give them just a chance to win that fight.
Now, I can think of negative things that could happen because of that.
Sure. You know what? I can think of negative things that happen too. But you know what I can't think of? I can't think of a negative thing that's worse than the mass shooting.
I can.
You can think, what? What's the teacher going to?
The consistent shooting of black kids because they're misbehaving.
We will. Okay, but here's the thing. They're not.
That can come up. That could come up to a lot more deaths than mass
Teachers
shootings.
aren't police. They're going to get arrested for that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously. Like, even.
Hey, wait. Not true.
Yes,
in
true.
Florida, that man who hunted that black guy down and killed him.
So you're talking. Okay. Let's just pull back on this. You're talking about Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
when he let go.
Okay, but here's the thing.
There you go.
At one point, Trayvon Martin, and actually he was an 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But he was a pretty big kid, and he actually had some MMA fighting. Now, I'm not saying this is justifying it, right?
The guy didn't know that when he was following him.
Well, he found it out because Trayvon Martin at one point was standing above this guy, raining blows down upon him, and probably in a deserved manner. But my point is, at the very least, there was something there. Like, he was definitely a capable fighter. Now, I'm not saying that justifies what Zimmerman did, but I'm saying it's not exactly like a predatory situation. Now,
Wait.
we have...
We're talking about the Florida case
Yeah.
where the guy was wearing a hoodie, was
Uh-huh.
visiting his mom.
I don't know who he was visiting. He was walking through a neighborhood. My understanding is that he was walking through a neighborhood that was rather well off, and he basically, there was a store on one side, and he lived on the other side, and he just cut through. We're talking about Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. This is the one that happened while Obama was in office. Or are you talking about something else? He was wearing a hoodie. I mean,
there was a hoodie guy, and the guy just followed him and shot him.
listen,
Did he shoot him after he beat him up?
he actually was on. Zimmerman was on the ground, getting beaten, and as he was getting his butt kicked,
He shot
he was
the guy.
able to pull his gun and shoot.
Okay, that's different. We're not talking about that.
Well, no, that is what we're talking about.
No,
because
there's
that
another-
was
there was
not
a-
reported.
There was another one.
What's that?
There was another one. There was a young man.
Again, this is a fist fight, and I'm not saying
This wasn't a fight. This guy didn't get a chance to fight.
Well, okay.
One of them didn't get a chance to fight. He was in Florida.
You think he didn't, but that's probably or possibly because of the way the media covered it, and they didn't tell you about that part. In other words, the media never talked about that particular part of the Trayvon Martin case. You had to follow the case and the testimony to even know that happened. Now, I'm not saying that justified. Those are
I
just
think
the
it
facts
did.
of the case.
Listen, no, wait. If you shoot, if you're raining like George, like Costanza's father, if you rain blows upon someone and they feel like their life might be in danger.
Okay, so I'm a big concealed carry. Well, not concealed carry, but I'm a big Second Amendment proponent.
Yeah.
I was in the Marine Corps and I was trained on the 13 lawful justifications for the use of lethal force.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a couple that could come into. A lot of them are just like if you're guarding nuclear missiles or something like that. So you don't have to worry about most of them, but there are like usually 2 or 3 that come into play. If you see somebody escaping from prison, you can attempt to recapture them and use lethal force if necessary. If you see somebody, if you witness, you have to witness a violent felony. That is like a rape, a murder, an armed robbery, a bank robbery, something like that. If you witness a violent felony, you may use lethal force in either stopping or apprehending that person. And that was not what the situation that he was in, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you are, and here's the other thing, that is also what you need for to make a citizen's arrest, right? So in most places, you have to see somebody commit a felony, even if not a violent felony. But in most states, it has to be a felony in order to engage in a citizen's arrest.
That's what should have happened with the Floyd situation. That the policemen, a crowd should have gathered. They should have attacked the policemen, put them in the back of the police car, and drove them to the station and made a citizen's arrest.
That's a tough one
I mean,
because that's okay.
That's what should
Hindsight
have
is
happened.
2020.
Yeah, that's what
And
should have happened.
maybe, I mean, I've even posted like, what would Moses do? But
Because when they said check his pulse, he's not breathing. At that point, it was murder, and
Uh-huh.
at that point, a citizen's arrest would have happened. You had
you would have had to
have overwhelming force. to have
had
done that.
overwhelming force. So you need probably okay. Well, listen. If I was there and I saw this, and I decided that it was worth intervening,
Yeah, because you might get shot because they were.
I could have
they were
taken all
clearly-
4 of those officers out quickly enough that they couldn't react. Okay, but I am.
You would be
very,
in jail though.
I am very skilled. I'd be in jail. I would have been arrested that day.
Yes, you
I would
would
have been
Yes,
charged
you would
with 4 counts of first-degree murder immediately. But this
Yes.
is what I'm getting back to. This I want to get back to, because let's keep put a pin in that. I would have been charged immediately, but the people in that crowd didn't necessarily have the skill or ability to stop that. Now, and don't get me wrong, I actually know the story of Moses, and I know that is a righteous and godly man who particularly did it. You know what I'm talking about? When he
Oh,
saw
yeah, I got the story. I know the story.
his Hebrew brother being beaten by a guard of Egypt, which is basically what they called police back then,
Yeah.
he intervened to stop the guard, and he ended up killing the guard.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a problem with it. He thought that was the right thing to do. Now, the next day, he found out that everybody knew that he's the one who done it.
Yeah, it's messed up.
And he knew that eventually the Egyptians were going to know that he was the one who
so,
done
he,
it.
so he ran away.
So he left. This is, I want to point out, this is not consciousness of guilt. He knew that what he did was fine. It was the right and just thing to do. But he also knew that the Egyptians were not going to accept that.
No.
The Egyptians weren't going to see it the same way.
No.
So, anyway, the point is, I don't know that we can demand that people react, because it wasn't really clear that he was about to kill that guy.
They said, watched the video today. People in the crowd said, he's not breathing. Check his pulse. Sir, he's not breathing.
But at that
Check
point,
his
he
pulse.
already killed him.
Yeah, well, I mean, how? And they complained about, why are you kneeling on the guy's neck for such a long period of time?
Right.
And so at that point, they should have said, okay, call. I mean, the point is that we've become. You couldn't have done that to a white woman in the South. There's no way.
I've seen videos where they do it to white women in the South. I mean, there's a video.
Not around Southern men.
Well, okay, maybe not.
That's
Maybe
what I'm saying. You couldn't have a white Southern belle and a cop on her neck like that with a
Okay.
bunch of Southern gentlemen around in Texas. Try that in Texas, and outside of a Texas bar, and you could do that to a Southern girl.
I don't know,
that
man.
Would happen?
Okay, because I don't know if that's even the case, because just recently there was a bar in Texas that was trying to reopen, and they had literally armed protesters outside protesting the shutdown, and the fattest cops you've ever seen showed up. And I mean, I'm saying this as a pretty big guy, but like, these were super big cops, and they came down and they were they had a armed personnel APC with them.
Yeah, that's
and
different. That's a what's the word? These guys didn't have an APC with them.
Well, it doesn't matter because they were all exposed. A well-placed shot would have taken out any one of those guys.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody
All
wants,
of them.
Nobody wants to give up. Okay, this is a situation where it was just 4 guys. There are people with cameras,
Right.
and at some point, the people should have said, "If you don't get off his neck, we're going to get you off it." At some point, someone should have said something. We just can't. We can't. Citizens are not slaves. We cannot allow.
I get that.
We cannot. All it needs, all evil needs to conquer is for good people to allow not do anything.
Well, here's the thing, though. We've gotten to a point where we, as a society, generally don't like or accept interference in police duties by citizens. Now, I personally am plenty cool with that if a police officer is doing something that he shouldn't be doing. And I'm also cool with basically, the phone a friend concept, or the ask the audience concept of if a police officer is doing something that the entire crowd around him believes is wrong, I am perfectly okay with the crowd intervening.
They should.
And they should be rational, and they should have.
That's a slippery slope, though.
It is.
Even as I'm saying it.
I know. Exactly it is.
I can see
but
where...
here's a better way to handle it, right? Because I'm not necessarily just saying...
I won't say it's a better way.
This is a better way of handling it. Let's say that instead of the current situation, and instead of expecting citizens to interfere with police on a daily basis, let's say that instead...
I didn't say on a daily basis.
Well, it would almost be a daily basis. If we actually started doing that, it would happen almost every day, at least at first. And maybe at some point in the future, it would stop happening. The cops would learn their lesson, and they would learn to act, badly when there's no one else around or something like that. But they would...
Don't just plant a gun in front of your body camera as if it's laissez-faire.
Or live on CNN.
How can you do that?
I hear you. I hear you. We've been watching the cops for a long time. We've been watching these particular actions. We know what they're up to. But here's the thing. And this is what I wanted to... We put that pin in that thing. Remember, like, if I did that, I'd be arrested immediately.
And for murder.
But the police officer was not arrested for at least a week. The riot started before he was arrested. Then the prosecutor comes out and says, we don't want to arrest because we think we have exculpatory information. The guy had a tox screen that came back positive. And then when they finally did, like 3 days later, they charged with third-degree murder instead of first-degree murder. And I'll tell you why that's wrong, right? When you are doing something that is sufficiently bad, there is a rule in prosecution called the felony murder rule. If you are doing something like, let's say you rob a bank, and as you're robbing a bank, you take a hostage. And as the police try to stop you, they murder your hostage. You get charged with first-degree murder for the death of that hostage. So the idea is he's clearly violating the guy's civil rights. He's clearly engaged in a brutality that, to my mind, rises to the level of a felony. I don't know exactly what felony he should have been charged with, but I'm sure they could have found a felony, and I think later they did. And then once you find a felony, he dies as a result of a felony, or as the result of committing a felony, then you have first-degree murder. I think that's how they came to a first-degree murder charge, because they eventually did reach it. But if you or I did that,
murder.
Immediately, it's felony murder rule, right? They know this. And with the police officer, it was like, oh, we don't want to charge. All right, we'll charge, but it's just third-degree murder. And then, as the riots keep going and going, it's like, okay, fine, it's first-degree murder. Now, not only is that why the riots happened, but it's why the riots will keep happening, because they got results. And so a lot of people are saying, like, why are you rioting now? You got what you wanted. Well, not really, because you begrudgingly gave them this one case. They don't want this one case. They want justice, and they want a system that will give them justice, that they can trust to give them justice over and over again.
When the police in Buffalo, which is why the Buffalo case, to me, and I don't mean to sound callous, is more important to show the sickness than the Floyd case. Because the Buffalo case shows how callous the police have become. And not all police, but when they're callous, they can push old white men down.
Right?
And keep on walking. And I think that shows that it's not for you guys who are saying, well, he was drunk, he had it coming. Look how big he is. That could be your granddad. Or you when you get older and they push you down and keep on walking. That's the whole point of this. The Buffalo case shows how bad we are. How bad it's become that not even old white men are safe. I mean, and that's when it's really bad. When you push an old white man down on your way to work or while you're working and keep on walking and ignore him. You should have seen the governor I think Como's remarks. He said, it's unconscionable. I don't understand why you would just push him down and keep on walking." He said, "We're better than this. This is our." He was he was really bothered by the callousness that police are portraying. Not the
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good that somebody is finally bothered by it. And this is something that we know from historical protests, that when a peaceful protest is met with a violent response, that it has the best outcome long term for civil rights.
That's right.
So
That's right.
And I got to tell you, like, I mean, I've often said that if I was a black man in the South at the time that Martin Luther King was having his riots, I might not have gone because I couldn't have stayed peaceful. They put fire hoses and dogs and all this stuff.
Yeah, they kept
I
them-
would have shot back.
Those were great Americans.
They were
They were great Americans.
people I admire.
Yeah, I admire
and
them.
People that I may not have been able to stand side by side with.
Because you put
for that particular
they released the German shepherds on you, and
Right.
you're still marching. And that's something I did want to say something, and I think that this is a great segue to say, listen, rioting does not make lasting change. What makes lasting change
Well, but you
is
see,
becoming
I
a
don't
part of the
think-
political process.
Right. I don't think that most people are trying to have these riots. I think the rioters are specific and they have ulterior motives.
Yeah, I believe it's. I will say this.
Yeah.
For what happened in Tampa, it was very interesting.
I don't know what happened in Tampa. Even
I
though
can tell you
that's
what
really
happened
close.
in Tampa.
Go ahead.
They emptied out the Champs store. I think they burned down a CVS, and I think
Wait.
that.
I think I saw one video. Was there a girl that like popped out of a box and said, "I got me some Nikes"?
I really do believe that a lot of that is organized crime, taking advantage. I do believe that because usually, rioters aren't going to empty out a whole store. They went in the mall and broke in and took out store and
Well, if there's enough people in a mob, and then you start doing things, I mean, it is actually really easy if you're in that moment and you get that temptation and you're like, I could just do this. Like, there's a whole crowd of people. They're not going to come for me. And it's the anonymity in
mob
the crowd.
mentality.
Mob
mentality.
Anonymity, I think, is the big thing, right? And it's the fact that there's a group of people doing something and you feel like you're just one of the group, and your bad thing is kind of amortized over the whole group of people. And then also, what are the chances? Like, they can't, if there's 2,000 people doing it, they can't come get all 2,000 people.
Yeah,
so your chance of getting away with it is pretty
I
good,
still
too.
think that it's organized crime, man, because the way that it was done it seemed to have been done systematically.
Well,
And the police were around still. I think the police were still around.
I'm not saying it's not organized crime. I'm just saying I don't have any evidence that it would be.
Neither do I. All I know is that they were where there are riots, people are dropping bricks off. I believe.
Oh, that is.
I
that's not
believe-
necessarily organized crime, but that is like Antifa and these agent provocateurs is the term that I'm using at the moment. People who are trying to instigate the violence or trying to get the riots to be more violent than they are. This is definitely something that's happening, right? Like, we know that that's occurring. I think though, those are like there's small organizations.
Well, here's my issue. Imagine the protocol. You're a police. You're a watch commander.
Okay.
Giving the instructions to your police officers, to your officers under your control, about to go out on patrol.
Right. The rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement. You're giving them rules of engagement, and you're thinking, you know what? The most important thing for you is to make sure you make it home to your wives and your children.
I would not tell them that, but I understand that a lot of people would tell them that.
And
I would tell them,
don't let these rioters are breaking the law, and they need to comply. You need to rule them.
I would tell them that being a police officer is not a job. It is not a vocation.
It's a calling.
It's a calling, and you have to be a police officer first and foremost for the community. If you're not willing to lay down your life for the people of your community, then you have the wrong job. You should quit your job and leave that job. If you're not willing to lay down your life, if you get upset that people would expect you would lay down your life for the community, for the benefit of everyone else, then you're not the kind of person that we want as a police officer. Now, I actually think that the way, and I said I have a solution. I think this is really important. What we really need is the federal government to try police officers specifically, or to investigate and, if appropriate, try police officers who shoot citizens.
On the state level.
No, on the federal. So the federal government comes in and investigates.
On the state level. So here's what I mean. In other words, when I say on the state level, the federal government, when you have a shooting, it's the federal government hears about it because the federal government.
And we need to mandate that it be reported. Right now,
Exactly.
if you're shot by a cop in Chicago, for instance,
state, yeah.
they, at least, I don't know if right this second it's what they're doing, but at one point they were reporting those as suicides. Cop-assisted suicide. That was literally how they reported those to the federal government. If you were shot by a police officer in Chicago, you just committed suicide. That is some organized crime.
That's mob, man.
That is
That's mob.
The cops are the mob in Chicago.
That's mob mentality. Well, listen, when I was in Chicago, I realized that it was really what's the word? Anti-citizen.
Right.
Do you know they charge you for bags of garbage in Chicago? Did you know that?
I didn't know that, and I don't know specifically what they do, but I
They
know
charge you per bag.
They have
You
a
put
huge
out-
problem in Chicago.
Yeah, you put out. They're so into money that they charge you per bag of garbage. How many you have I mean, it's amazing.
Well,
I've never been in a state where they charge you for your bags of garbage.
Sure, and if you don't put up bags, they charge you anyway.
It's not pretty, dude. They're so money hungry there. And it's all about getting them squeezing as much money from the people as you possibly can with road tolls and with things like it's terrible over there. I was so glad to get out of that town, and
Right.
I think it's beautiful. I love the people, but man, they are really after your money, and they've had their hand in your wallet in Chicago.
So I've actually heard Tim Pool talk about this a bunch of times, and he actually used to live in Chicago, so I kind of defer to people who've lived in that city. But he points out that Chicago used to be a thriving city, and they built an infrastructure for whatever millions of people were there. And now that basically the Democrat elected officials have run it into the ground, half of those people have fled. The people who could leave did leave, right? And so now they're actually they're ripping down houses so that people can't live there or squat there and stuff like that. They're ripping down houses. They have a crumbling infrastructure that is designed for twice as many people as they currently have, and so they can't support it. And then that means they have to charge people way more money than they need to support just their infrastructure. They have to charge them to support their infrastructure and all the other infrastructure they built that people aren't there to take advantage of or use. So this whole thing is becoming a problem, right? Because they have to. I mean, if you have pipes and the water goes to a place that no longer needs water, nobody uses that. The water sits there, it stagnates a bit, and then at some point it breaks out, and you have a leak, and you have to go fix that, and there's nobody even there for it, right?
I would like to see where that's happening because I have family who lives in Chicago, and I have not heard anything close to that. I have family who still live. They live in Aurora, and they live in other places. And I have to call. I'll call them up, and I have not heard that from them. That is the infrastructure.
A lot of people don't understand that that's what's happening. But in other words, they have to support and maintain infrastructure.
I get that part.
Designed for twice as many people.
I did not know.
I'm not saying there are major catastrophic issues all the time. I'm saying that there's always issues with infrastructure, right? Like you have pipes in the ground, they're going to burst.
I get all that stuff. I'm
Okay.
just thinking, Yeah. Nonetheless, I'm still. They're still in it for your money. In fact, my friend had told me, some old school guys, family members had said that if you get stopped by a ticket in certain places, you can go. We can just sell this right now. I got $50, $60 for you, and oftentimes it'll go away.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm saying that when I say what I'm saying because this is anecdotal.
Maybe that's why the cops are so mad at me when they pull me over here, because I never offer them
You
anything.
never offered me. You know what? Would you like some donuts? I've got a donut.
Oh, I have never actually been pulled over with donuts. It's like magic, right? If I have donuts, they're not pulling me over.
But you always have food in your car because they're hungry, and have a little have about about a couple $100 bills. So just, hey, you know what? Can we sell this right now, please? I'm in a hurry, and just take And in Chicago, that's what I was told. In certain places, you get stopped, you need to be able to payola, pay as you go. And I think that. So anyway, I want to talk about that. Talk about it that much. But my point is that.
Yeah. Well, you know what I would do if WIAP. That's my favorite hashtag, right? When I'm president, I'll send people down there. I will send federal officers down there to attempt to bribe those cops, and we'll see what happens. And if they ever accept it, we're going to, we'll take them out. We'll arrest those police officers and charge them on the federal level.
Hey, you know what?
But this is what we need to do. We need to have the
federal oversight.
The 14th Amendment of the Constitution says this. It says this exact thing.
The government that the
If the
federal
state-
government should be able to police the state government.
It prohibits the states from violating your rights.
Yeah.
And then it charges the federal government with the oversight of that particular thing to make sure that the states do not violate the rights of the citizens. Now, I have heard some people argue ineffectively or inaccurately that was not the original intent of the Constitution. But actually, if you look at, I believe it's Article 4 of the Constitution, it says that the federal government is actually charged with guaranteeing the states a Republican form of government. Now, that doesn't mean that the Republicans have to be in charge. What that means is a republic is a very specific thing. And this is why, where Republicans get their name from. A republic is a nation where you elect representatives and the individual person has rights that cannot be violated by the government.
Which is why in Star Wars, it's named the Republic.
Right?
Because that's what Lucas was alluding to. Mm-hmm. He was alluding to a freedom where every vote counts.
Well, yeah, every vote does have to count, and also I think that if states are doing things that invalidate elections, that is a violation of the Republican form of government. If states are violating the rights of individuals willy-nilly, that is a violation of the Republican form of government.
Indeed.
And so it is the federal government's responsibility. Now, I will give this to the originalists, right? They did not believe the federal government was going to have a lot of work to do in policing the states. They thought the states would be policed pretty well by their own people. But we have definitely gotten to a point where the state power is exercised in violation of individual liberties and is exercised in violation of the will of the people of those states. Since that is the case, it is incumbent upon the federal government to react, to do something. Okay?
Well, unfortunately,
and I want to say this too. I don't want to institute a situation where we push the pendulum, right? I'm not trying to push the pendulum over as far as we can. I want to push the pendulum. I want to basically stop the pendulum swinging at the center point, so and then steady it so it doesn't keep swinging around. Because this is, I don't want police to be unjustly prosecuted. I don't want police to feel like they can't do their job
but that's
properly
exactly
and correctly.
What will happen.
Okay, there will be police who say, I can't do my job anymore. And those are the bad cops. Those are the people who are like pushing white men, old men over on the street. Those are the people kneeling on a guy's neck till he dies. Those people should be scared of the authority above them, and they're currently not. But if you're, okay, I saw a statistic the other day. I was actually watching Reason TV, and they had a great interview with a guy who's done the studies on the statistics, and there is a Pareto distribution involved with police brutality. A small percentage of cops commit the vast majority of brutal incidents. This cop, the guy that killed George Floyd?
Yeah, I saw the
He
case.
had
he had other cases, infractions.
a history of other infractions, and actually one of them,
was involved in a shooting,
one
a
of
fatal
the
shooting.
I don't know all of them, but in one case in particular, I think it was Klobuchar,
I'm not sure. The name of it, but
who was
one
the
involved.
prosecutor who decided not to prosecute.
See, the problem is the thin blue line. We've seen this in a lot of our television shows.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying destroy the thin blue line. I don't worry about the thin blue line. That's not the problem. The problem is we have very specific, a small percentage of bad cops that are doing the majority of the bad things, and all you got to do is start looking at them and say, oh, okay, we're gonna arrest you for that. Murder, for instance, has no statute of limitations. If somebody's committed murder in the past 20 years, you can actually prosecute every single one of those murders. Now, we have to be clear, right? Like, I understand what lethal force is. I understand there are justifications for it. And we have to be very clear with
you looked at me
police.
funny, and
Yeah,
you shouted.
not that. That's
you
not
shouted at me, and so
You flipped me off.
I need to shoot you.
Right. So we need to be very clear about the things that we go after, right? And it's got to be the unjustified uses of force per old rules, right? Not this new stuff that they're like, oh, if somebody's intoxicated, that exonerates them. No, it doesn't. If somebody's intoxicated, you maybe take them into custody, but you definitely don't murder them.
We've seen. That makes no sense because we've watched the Andy Williams show.
What?
Remember? So and so was drunk.
Not at all.
Oh, you didn't watch that show?
Nope.
You never watched the reruns?
Not that I'm aware
I
of.
think there's a character. I think his name was Floyd. Maybe, perhaps one of them was Floyd. And he was always drunk. He was drunk all the time. And when he was drunk, they put him in a cage. They put him in the cage.
Yeah,
and they
I will
let
say
him,
that
they let him sleep it off, and then he went back home.
That is actually technically that's unconstitutional. But what happens is states want to write a law, and they write the law so that it can be enforced. So they usually write drunk in public, where it used to be intoxicated and belligerent in public. But it becomes really hard to prove that belligerent thing because it's kind of a subjective standard. So they drop it and just say drunk in public.
Well, you see what I'm saying, though. But the fact is,
then they leave it to the officer. Well, I want to make this point. They leave it to the officer to know you're only supposed to arrest if they're actually causing a problem, if they're drunk and belligerent or problematic in some way in a public setting.
Well,
and then it's okay.
Well, that's the point. If you look at the situation on Andy Williams, guy was drunk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He had issues, and they let him sleep it off. And he wasn't really arrested. In other words, he wasn't necessarily arrested. It would not go on his
Well, what do
record.
you call that when you take somebody and throw them in a jail cell? I mean, to me, that's an arrest. Some other people would be like, no, that's not an arrest.
No.
But I mean, that
it's
just
not
perverts the concept of arrest.
It's not an arrest because you're not charging him with anything. You're just letting him sleep it off, and you let him go. So in other words,
No. That's definitely wrong because the constitutional standard is that if you arrest somebody, you have to have a reason to arrest them, which is
drunken and disorderly.
proven by the charge, right? It's not. So your concept that you just outlined.
I didn't say it was my concept. I'm talking about what they did in the show.
Okay, but
so
you're
what
saying,
I'm saying
that they're
is
not.
that
Okay, but let me get this out. If they're not being arrested, and you say they're not arrested because we didn't charge them with anything, then that would mean that you're kind of defining away a crime that the state can commit. If you arrest somebody without cause,
I'm not defining
is,
it. I'm simply talking about what the show is like.
Right, but if you arrest somebody and you have no reason to charge them and you have nothing to charge them for, that could be a violation of their constitutional rights.
I believe so, but check it out. The fact
So
is,
they're definitely arrested.
the fact is, he's put,
Okay.
he sleeps it off,
Uh-huh.
and the guy goes home. If you look at the Floyd guy, he was in his vehicle.
right?
He was calm. He was like the drunk guy.
Did he pass a $20 bill? I mean, that's what.
It doesn't even matter. The
Well,
fact is that there was no proof. You didn't see the officer taking him up, taking him back to the store and say, "Listen, sir, this person has accused you of a crime."
Well, okay, but to be clear, he was intoxicated and he was in a car.
Exactly.
And it in that particular situation, it seems to me legitimate to suspect that he's about to drive while intoxicated.
He had been there for 7 minutes and hadn't moved.
Okay.
The timestamp on the clock, he was there.
How did he get there?
They called the cop. He walked across the street to the vehicle. He sat in the vehicle for 7 minutes and did nothing.
How did he get there? I believe he drove there.
Okay, my point
Was
is
he
that,
not? Did he take the substances after he arrived?
my point is that he was there. He was in his vehicle and clearly not driving.
Okay.
Because when they came, he was still there.
I'm pretty libertarian, and I believe that a person has the absolute right to put whatever they want to put in their body that they want to put in their body. And I don't really care. I don't think the police should be governing that. However, when somebody's about to operate a motor vehicle under the influence of one of these very dangerous substances, and also I'll point out that things like I don't know what the disposition of marijuana is in that particular city, but like what we find is that if somebody has access to marijuana, they will shy away from the harder drugs. So there's that too. But he was on fentanyl. That is one of the top. Now, I also, we don't know if that was prescribed, if that was something, because actually part of the real controversy about this is that synthetic fentanyl is actually the kind of fentanyl that is causing more of the problems, and that's being prescribed to people. It's much more common than like the illegal form of fentanyl that maybe he could have gotten. So we don't know what the source is. But at the same time, he seemed clearly intoxicated.
Definitely.
And
he wasn't driving. He had sat there and wouldn't move.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the situation. I mean, clearly we know the killing him part was bad. I don't know if taking him into custody was wrong. I'm not able to make that
I didn't say
statement.
that was wrong. But what I'm saying is that it's inappropriate if you, because you mentioned the $20 bill. Everyone's mentioning the counterfeit $20 bill.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying the
right.
Okay, so that's
I don't know if that gives.
That's the cause.
Okay.
A counterfeit $20 bill.
Right.
Okay. He gets in his car. He is clearly drunk.
Again, he could have just gotten that out of an ATM. We don't know where that $20.
Exactly.
So I don't think somebody should be arrested for a single $20 bill. If you say, hey, could you pull out your wallet and show me your bills? And they have 10 counterfeit $20 bills with the same serial number on them,
That's
arrest that guy.
That's a problem.
Yeah, pull that guy into custody. But just one? I don't really, and believe me.
Because I've passed counterfeit money and not known. Somebody gave me a counterfeit bill.
You just admitted to a felony.
Exactly.
Live on YouTube.
That's right. As I did not know. Somebody gave me the money, and I passed it. I passed it on to someone else, and I looked at it and said, oh no.
I'll tell you this: I accepted a counterfeit one time.
That's not real.
Here's the thing: I looked at it. I was looking at it for like a couple of minutes, and I was like, "This just doesn't
look
like
right.
That looks weird." And the guy was like nervous as heck, and I was like, looking at him, he was like really nervous, and I was like, I don't know, man, it just looks really weird to me, but I guess I'll take it. I mean, and what it actually was
Monopoly
a
money.
$1 bill where the guy had cut out the corners and pasted the 20 on it, and I was just looking at the numbers, and I didn't, like, I was looking at it and it didn't seem right, like something seemed off, but I didn't know enough at the time about looking at money to see if it was counterfeit.
Listen.
It had George Washington was on the bill, right? Like, it's a $1 bill. It says 20s on the corner. And I'm like, I can't put my finger on it, but something's
wrong.
not right here.
Well, I mean, that's what happened to me. So I ended up,
Yeah.
I went to a store of some sort, and they said, dude, this is not real. And I looked at it and said, oh man, you're right. This is not real. Oh, that's terrible. And I got it back and gave him another one. But my
Right.
point was that could happen to
And then
anyone.
you passed it somewhere else.
And then I passed it somewhere. No, I didn't actually. I burned it. But the point is that can happen anywhere, which is why banks always check the money that they're given.
Right.
And so the point. So you have the $20 bill. Ixnay that. You see the guy. He's clearly drunk or high,
Intoxicated.
but he's not. But high, but he's not an angry drunk. It's a big black guy though, but he's not an angry guy. He's
Right.
kind of very docile and seemingly compliant until you try to get him in the car, and then he complains that he's claustrophobic.
Ugh.
That was the issue. He
Okay.
said, so he gets in the car, and they pull him out because he's not sitting properly, because he's obviously either he's buzzed is making him hallucinate or whatever, and so he's having a problem. So they pull him out of the side of the car, and that's when the bad stuff starts to happen. And so that's when he's in the side of the vehicle. After that, and they're leaning on the guy deck saying, "Get in the car." He says, "Get off me." Then they say, "Get in the car properly, and then we'll get off you," while they're leaning on him.
Right.
And then the bystanders start complaining. So,
Well,
my
this is something that I think a lot of police don't understand is the coercion like that, like forceful coercive methods, don't obtain compliance. Like you just a little bit of forceful coercion doesn't obtain. If you want to get somebody to comply, you need to break a pinky or something like that. But you can't do that to a citizen. So I'm not suggesting police officers do that, but you have to really put a lot of force on somebody to get them to comply. A small amount of force, the amount of force that a police officer is actually allowed to use, will probably engender resistance instead of compliance.
Well, they pull him out of he was in the vehicle, then they pull him out of the vehicle
Right?
because he's not in the vehicle properly. That's what they said.
Uh-huh.
Then they have him on the side.
I would not even.
Then they have him on the side of the vehicle.
I would not even argue with them on that. They probably are correct about that particular point. You know, he was probably not in the vehicle correctly. He's probably sitting there in some kind of way that wasn't right. I don't care. That's not. I mean, that's not necessarily. Obviously, again, that's not a justification for the use of lethal force. So I'm not worried about that particular point. And this is. I mean, we got to look at what matters in every case. Right?
I think this matters because he was in the vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Right? You could have handcuffed him. There are 4 of you guys there.
Well, you can't really, like, I mean, he probably was handcuffed and then, like, okay, so he's handcuffed in the back of the vehicle. He can still, lay on his back and kick the windows and all kinds of other
Okay, but my point is that not him because he's docile. As far as we saw, we're looking at a docile guy. He's muscular.
Okay.
He's a big guy.
Right.
He's muscular, but
So if he's in there-
extremely docile. They
If
pull
he's-
him. They pull him back out.
Uh-huh.
That's the issue. He's in their control. He's clearly under their control,
Right?
except that he's not sitting properly.
Well,
That-
and this is actually another really important thing that we have to understand. If we go back, a lot of police feel like they're not responsible for the outcome of people in their custody. And that is definitely not right. There are several laws that have been passed in the United States that clearly put a police officer as responsible for the health, safety, and well-being of people that they have taken into custody. And we've gotten away from that in the courts, right? The courts have basically continuously say, like, the police officers have no real duty
Criminals
here.
have no rights.
They can, yeah. Well, not that exactly.
You can't even
because
vote if you're a criminal.
Definitely,
You don't have rights. You're
if
not a
you have
regular
a right
citizen.
to a whole cookie. It can't be a broken cookie. That is a violation of your rights. But knee on the neck, whatever. So anyway, but the point is, actually, if you go back into Roman times, there's actually a really great saying that everybody knows: "Fall on your sword," right? And do we know what "fall on your sword" actually comes from? Roman soldiers who took someone into custody were 100% responsible for the outcome and their safety. If the mob came to them and said, "We want your prisoner because we want to
Kill him.
kill him, we want mob justice," they had to protect their prisoner
With their
from the
life.
mob with their life, or they would be required to forfeit their life. Now,
Stop for a second. I want to talk to you.
Okay.
Now, when Paul was being beaten,
Yes.
he says, "Is it lawful to treat a Roman soldier, a Roman citizen, so?" And they immediately stopped. They said, "We did not know
Absolutely.
that he was a Roman."
That is the kind of citizen protection we're looking for.
Citizenship has to mean something. This guy's an American. You can't do that to him. Even whether you like Trump's policies or not, he did say something. He said America first. If it's America first, then Americans are first.
Right.
And I think that if you believe in the America first that Trump has spoken about, then Americans are first. And if you're an American subject or an American citizen under the control of America, you need to be treated properly
Absolutely.
and fairly and justly just because you're an American.
Yes.
Because
American citizens should have all of those rights. Now, this is another thing. I was rereading the Constitution the other day. This is not my first go-around, but there was something interesting, and I think I may have thought about this and thought, oh, I need to go look at that. It says that that citizens shall be entitled to the what does it say? Not the rights, but the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states. That is an interesting set of words there because entitlement means you have a right to it. It's yours. You're entitled to it. We have all kinds of entitlements like Title IX, and we have whatchamacallit, Social Security. You're entitled to that because you've put into it. All these various entitlements. But there are a lot of entitlements that are the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the several states. Now, I think this obviously means that it's not that you can't have these taken away from you, but that you, at the very least, have the right to them until due process is followed.
exactly.
This would include things like a driver's license, the right to keep and bear arms. All those things would be privileges and or immunities. Now, I believe immunities is an interesting word, right? Because if you have an immunity, what that means is you can do a thing with impunity. The government can't touch you for it. So things like, and this is, obviously this was written before the Bill of Rights, but once you have the Bill of Rights, you say, okay, the right to worship and assemble. Those are immunities, literal immunities. A police officer cannot do a thing if you are going to church. And right now we have that. Like which
is against we have a right to assemble,
right?
Which is against the Constitution.
Well, but again, you have these. So you have the privileges and immunities. You have the First Amendment. But this is what I'm saying. Like this informs what it means because we've got all these governors right now, and even the Supreme Court. And this is something that we haven't talked about. But do you realize the Supreme Court rejected a case where a church was asking for relief from the state where they were being told that they couldn't assemble anymore. And the Supreme Court, on a 5-4 decision, rejected their request for injunction.
Separation
because
of church
they
and
didn't
state.
know. They said, literally, we don't know if COVID is serious or not. It's not our position. We aren't medical professionals. What I think is, what I said on Twitter is, I think it's really incredible that they're also not legal experts either, because they don't realize that the church didn't come to them for a medical ruling. The church came to them for their legal expertise. Hey, do we have these rights or not? Here's our question. And the court completely missed the point, answered it completely in the wrong way.
No,
we're not medical experts. We don't know.
They got the point.
In their ruling, they stated they didn't get the point.
Yeah, that's what. And I was watching an Asian comic. Mm-hmm. Not against Asians at all. But I was watching an Asian comic, and he said that, I'm upset that they know that I speak English, because one of my favorite things used to do that they assume I don't speak English my favorite thing was acting like I don't speak English. He played the stupid. He'd get stopped and he'd say, "I don't know. Do you know he was speeding? I don't know. No English." And so so that's what they did. They did an I don't know.
He's there.
I don't know, because COVID has everyone acting like a punk.
Right.
Listen, my mom died from COVID, so I have been personally affected by
Here,
the malady. But my
Right,
point
right.
still is, even though COVID was the nail in my mom's coffin, it still doesn't change the fact that we in America are acting like punks. We are acting like scared little girls over a virus. I know that people are dying. We've lost maybe 100,000 so far.
well, actually, there was a story out today. They're starting to really check that, and they think that it's inflated by at least 25%. As we know, we've talked about this a couple
Yeah.
times. But yeah, they're starting to put numbers on the inflation. At least 25%, maybe more.
Yeah, and so, but I believe that I was talking about there was a time when, I'm a church person, and there was a time when churches were a place of safety where you could run to when the world was falling around you. We are closing churches, and
Well, you know why that is. There is a legitimate thought process behind this. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it, but during the actual plague, the bubonic plague, they didn't close churches, and churches became a place where people were infected. And churches were also, like, you would go to church and people would get infected at church, and then also like the bishop and the pastors would get infected and they'd die. And basically people then interpreted this in a religious manner. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if they hadn't gone to church, they wouldn't have gotten infected, because they were getting infected everywhere. They didn't know where infections were occurring, and they didn't know, how things were happening. But you would go on Sunday, and then all of a sudden there'd be a lot more people the next day.
Well, unfortunately, Luther and his wife disagree, because Martin Luther, and his wife took in sick from the plague into their home, and they were better for it. And so my point is that the church and they into their home, not just a big church cathedral,
Right.
into their personal home,
Hey.
and cared for them. My point is
Commendable.
commendable, and my point is that now we'd arrest him and say that he's a wife killer, because you're taking care of these people with COVID with your wife and your family. My point is that we have become so.
I would not, I would not endorse the state interfering in that. But at the same time, if I have my family in a very dangerous situation exists outside, I would probably not bring it inside to my family. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. I understand what he did, and I understand, like, in the middle of this pressing human need, I understand doing it. But I'm not necessarily. I don't know that it's required. But at the same time,
I didn't say it was required.
I would
saying it's
go
commendable.
outside, help them out, bring them water, things like that.
He
Like
took
whatever
them into
medical
his
treatment.
home and cared for them. That's what the church is supposed to be.
Again,
A place. It's supposed to be sanctuary. Even vampires won't kill you in the holy ground. Holy ground is supposed to mean something. The mafia. If you were running from the mafia and you run to holy ground, they wouldn't bother. Holy ground used to mean something.
Yeah.
And when you should be able to get sanctuary.
it also means that other Highlanders or other immortals can't take your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this type of this archetype of the church being a place of refuge and safety. And when you allow the government, as you talked about the Supreme Court, to take that away, you have now devalued the power and the value of the church in the lives of its citizens in the state. And so some conferences still have not opened their doors yet. And I'm thinking, wait
Yeah.
a second, guys, what message are you sending about your value? Walmart's open.
Our
What
church.
messages are you sending about your value? The mall's open. What messages are
Oh,
you
I saw a meme the other day. We should go. We should all go worship at Walmart this Sunday
Exactly.
because we can do it, and no one would get upset at us or us. My church is actually planning on doing an outdoors meeting at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Now you got to understand, this is Florida, and I think this is a terrible idea because one, there is no air conditioning, and two, there will be mosquitoes.
Yeah.
There has been rain recently, and it takes usually about like 2 weeks for them to really start to swarm after the rain. There will be mosquitoes like you have never seen, and these people are planning on going out in the early morning, where, quite frankly, mosquito time, and they're going to find that this is a terrible idea. Look, I mean, I will bet you that more people at my church are going to die of Zika than of COVID.
I mean, this is what bothers me. Is that's why I say punks, because we are not behaving as if our
Right.
our valued institute. What message are you sending to the governor when the governor says you're essential and you say, "No, I'm not. We need to protect our people." You say, "No, I'm not." I mean, the government says you're essential, and you don't even open.
Right. Well, I mean,
I don't get it. I don't get it. How a conference official, and don't talk about death. My own mom died, and I love my mom, but don't talk about the deaths of your members. I think that it is irresponsible and an oversight for you churches to close. You put up there's a solution. You put up wash stations. You make masks mandatory. If you have to double your services to lessen your attendance, do that also. And you do altered seating. I agree with all of that. So you take all the regular precautions. You have wash stations everywhere, and even if you want to make masks mandatory, if you wash every couple of minutes, you have Lysol at every entrance to every door, and ask them to spray with Lysol. There are things you can do to protect your people.
even that's a little excessive.
It's
I mean,
excessive, but my point is that I would rather you do that than not even show up for business.
right. Well,
You've told people that Walmart is more essential than the gospel. Really? Is that what you want people to believe?
Well, and we know that it's not. And even like, so, here's one of the things that I've actually really enjoyed recently. There's a lot of secular, even evolutionary biologists that are coming out and saying, "Hey, church and religion has a very important purpose in our communities and in our lives, and it's not necessarily clear that you can get the benefit without attendance and without the institution itself, right?" So, like, basically,
You got to be in it to win it.
yeah, the churches are, and to the point where, like, even scientists are saying, like, we recognize the benefit of churches, and it's undeniable. There are clear things that are better. People who attend church are getting several benefits from it. Now, there's been a lot of people, trying to use statistics to deny the benefits of church, but that's not necessarily, they haven't been necessarily scientifically sound.
People need to meet. I'll give you some example of a COVID, what I call COVID punkness here in Florida. One of the churches that I attend, that I work for, there's a home, a nursing home attached to it, and the pastor goes to the nursing home. Do you know that there were 3 elderly people over the age of 70 who got the virus? No deaths.
Okay.
One is very sick, but is expected to recover. So even in an old folks' home or a nursing facility where you have people who are elderly, they had some positives and still no
Right.
deaths.
But here's the thing, like, even among the elderly, the rate is something like it's higher, but it's still under 1%.
Yeah.
Right, the mortality rate. So I mean, yeah, there's a greater increase chance for complications and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like if you're old, that's true of almost every virus that you can get.
Yeah, that's true.
This is just a new virus, so people seem to have freaked out over it. This is something I actually just came across on Twitter. For those of you watching, you can't see this, but we're watching a video of a group of white protesters attacking a black man. Now, it says that he's a cop. He has some kind of uniform on, but it's not really necessarily clear. Oh, yeah, he is. Okay, it says he's got a bulletproof vest, and it said, I think, sheriff on the back of it. Yeah, and so the comment is, what do you call it when a group of white people attacks a black man? Unless he's a cop, it's bad. But apparently they think that this is okay. This is the kind of thing, like this indiscriminate violence against people because of,
What they do for a living.
yeah, what they do for a living. I mean, I even get it.
Come on, guys. You can't do that. I mean, you know what? But see, once again, you know what they're responding to?
That
The system of power is out of control. And so anybody
Well, I think they're
works for the system.
they're responding to the uniform, right? Because in a war, and this is like historically, wars have been fought between uniform forces.
That's right.
So you have one force has a certain uniform, another force has another uniform. Now, there were a couple of guerrilla wars prior to the Revolutionary War, but the Revolutionary War is one of the first really successful examples of a guerrilla or an asymmetric warfare or guerrilla tactics.
Yeah, they
right?
were really good. They were very good. But the redcoats, because you rough-hued Americans did not know how to fight with chivalry and honor.
Right. Well, some comedian at one point talked about
we would line up and expect you to
And
line
wear
up
red.
also. And wear red because
you would line up, wear red, march in a straight line. And actually, there was a comedian who talked about this, and it was almost like you guys lost the coin flip at the beginning of a Super Bowl game. It was like, hey, what happens when you flip a coin at the beginning of a Super Bowl game? They're like, we will receive. And then so at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, somebody flipped the coin and let the redcoats call it and said, hey, what are you gonna call? Call it's heads. Floop. It's tails. All right, revolutionaries, what are you gonna do? We're going to wear dark clothes and hide behind the trees and snipe you wherever we can.
Yeah.
And you are going to wear red and march in a straight line.
exactly. And it didn't work out. It didn't work
Amazingly,
out at all.
amazingly, it didn't work out. This is
work.
actually,
But it used to work. It used to work when
it
both
only
sides followed the
ever
rules.
worked when the two sides
Followed the
wanted
rules
to
of it.
fight each other. Well, you see, here's the thing. Like, that didn't even work. Like, there were certain times where, people would take a force out to war, and then there was another force coming to wage war with them. But instead of going to meet the soldiers, they would go around the soldiers and siege the city. I mean, there's tactics and strategy don't follow the rules of gentlemen. If you ever fought me, you would find that I am not a gentleman.
No.
And I'm sorry for it.
You're
but
you're not a gentleman now.
I would definitely not be a gentleman in the
I
fight.
mean,
Do you realize
you're a good
that
guy, but I wouldn't know. But I would never say.
Since
"My-
I joined the
he's-
Marine Corps?"
he's gentlemanly.
I have not lost a fight since I joined the Marine
Lost
Corps.
a fight. You hear that? That's
Yeah, well, okay, so rule number 1 is you don't fight me because I was in the Marines.
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so that handles like 90% of the fights. I won't lose those because I never get in them, right? The other, so many fights that I would
and
or
you're
could
over
get
6,
in.
and you're over 6 feet.
I'm 6'4", so
And you're over
I'm
200
huge.
pounds.
Dude, like
You're
I'm
over 200
actually.
pounds. I won't say how much, but you're
No,
over 200 pounds.
I am over 200 pounds. When I tell people how much I weigh, they go, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that." Like I'm big, and you can tell that I'm chubby, right? But like underneath all this chub, there is actually like some solid muscle, and people don't like when I tell them the number, they start to get that, right? Because the density that is displayed by the number is you can't explain that away with just fat. They're like, "Oh crap."
Yeah,
Okay. So That yeah, basically the number one way to win a fight is to not have the fight, or to not lose a fight is to not have the fight.
So when you see a black police officer
yeah,
in uniform, he is still representing the uniform.
right.
When the uniformed white police officers see an old white man protesting, he is still representing the
protest.
uniform. He's a protester and therefore should be punished.
That's right.
And
Now that gets us back to the number one cause for violence among human beings: tribalism. Right.
Exactly.
So this is a tribe.
versus
They's a tribe, and we got to fight.
Exactly. I'm not protecting and serving. At this point, you're the enemy. And I think that's the problem that you see. And so I don't know if it was so if you're wearing the uniform, don't go out at night without a group of you.
So I
Because
think maybe one of the things that I mean, as we just had this discussion, one of the things that we want to stop this. We need to start seeing if we can get people to self-identify instead of as a cop or a protester or whatever,
I'm an American.
an American citizen. And that word citizen is important, like we just talked about. Like, oh, I didn't know you were a citizen. You're a citizen? Citizens get respect. Citizens have privileges and immunities.
Exactly.
Citizens are the top thing that you can be in these United States. You can be a citizen.
One of the best stories that I've ever told of treatment has to be my experience with the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh, really?
Yes. Have I told you the story before? I believe I have.
I don't remember it, but go for it.
I'm going to. Okay, so I was on tour as an artist with a group of other musicians. When I was at the Hyatt, I was playing the piano, right? And I do so for a little bit, and it was in the lobby. And do you know that they actually asked me to stop playing the piano?
Oh, you have told me this one.
So we go to the other island. We go to the Big Island of Hawaii, and we end up at the Ritz-Carlton. And I asked the gentleman, because after the Hyatt, I realized I need to ask permission. Sir, may I please play your piano? And they said, of course, Mr. Smith.
That's the right answer, right?
Shall I escort you to the piano? It's a totally different. Now, keep in mind, I'm still a black guy.
Oh, you really? So you were the same color in both
I was
places?
same color both places.
Okay.
But at the Ritz-Carlton in Hawaii, it didn't matter. Do you know why?
Because you were a
Because I'm
customer.
clearly something at the Ritz-Carlton.
Uh-huh.
And I slept in the bed. They ironed my suit for me. They washed. They dry cleaned my suit for me.
That's the Ritz experience.
That's
you
the Ritz
expect.
experience. Listen to me. It was glorious. It was the best sleep I've ever had at a hotel. But hear me carefully. It wasn't until later when I was listening to a Chick-fil-A leadercast when a gentleman who had sat in on a Ritz-Carlton training meeting understood why they treat you this way.
Right.
Because their credo is, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
Very nice.
We are.
That's a very British thing to do.
But think about it. We are citizens
Right?
serving
citizens. Ooh, I really like that. Citizens serving
citizens.
citizens.
That's what the police creed should be. We are
Yes.
citizens serving citizens.
Ooh,
And
I'll
so-
get goosebumps.
When you live that way, when you see an old 75-year-old man while you're on patrol, even in a riot patrol, and you see him and you knock him down, you stop what you're doing and you say, oh my, we have injured a citizen.
Right, right.
Pick him up and see how he's doing.
Yeah.
He's a citizen. I'm a citizen. And I think that's the problem. We have lost, and the cancel culture has created has created such a divide, has given us the permission to have that divide, because you're not a citizen if you disagree with me. And so the protester who disagrees with the police is also not a citizen,
Well,
because you're not the same as me.
I've always thought that it was dehumanization, right? That if you are, in other words, the thing that you have to do is dehumanize, depersonize the person that you're trying to destroy. Like if you want to destroy somebody the way cancel culture tries to destroy someone, you have to treat them like they're not even
You're
human.
a monster.
You're a monster, exactly. But I think that this is nice. This is an idea of elevating even higher. You know, like everyone's a person, but you're also a citizen, and that elevation is really a great counter to the dehumanization. It's a great counter to the disdain that people can start to have for other people. I think-
Membership should have its privileges.
Yeah.
Membership should have its privileges. I'm sorry. If I'm an American or living in America, it should be something that others should espouse to. And there shouldn't be, oh, look how, I mean, this is embarrassing for all you people in power who think that this type of thing is okay because the people make less money than you, or they're not as powerful as you. They are still citizens. They may not hire as many people as you do. They may not have your bank account. They may not be as powerful as you are, but it doesn't matter. They're citizens. And you should treat them with respect. I like what Dave says.
Well, you know,
citizens are not slaves.
the thing is, that's a great epiphany that I had at one point. The police are also often, I hear police often complain about the lack of respect, and my thought has always been like, well, yeah, but you're not giving respect, so you don't get respect, and also you disrespect, like intentionally disrespect the rights of many of the people you come across, and not necessarily like an individual, but a lot of the people wearing that uniform will disrespect the rights of citizens that they come across. So you're not sorry, you're not setting yourself up to be respected, because too many people who are like you or who are part of the tribe, visibly part of your tribe, are disrespecting.
And that's the problem when you don't see them as sons. And so that's the issue, because if you look at the case, when other citizens, the Floyd case, when other citizens said, hey, wait a second,
Right?
get off his neck, man.
Yeah.
You would have said, you know what, guys, you're right. He's a citizen. Even though he's doing the wrong thing right now, or we think he's doing the wrong thing.
Right?
You know what? Let's get him up, make sure he's okay. Are you okay, Mr. So-and-so?
And
we need to restrain you, though, but are you okay?
I love that, because the goal should be restoration, not punishment, not incarceration, not like, hey, we want to hurt you because we feel like you broke a rule. It should be, hey, we need to help this person get back to. But this is kind of like a thing that's been said a lot, like of the police system, but get back to being a citizen, back to being a productive member of society. Now, I'll say this.
Rehabilitation.
Yeah, I think that this is, well, yeah, but I mean, that's a little cliche, and I didn't want to necessarily go there.
I know that, but because we hate that. I mean, but my point is that exactly what you said, man. I mean, that should be, even in the moment, when you're doing customer service and someone's cursing the snot out of you,
Right.
and calling you every such name, you should say, sir, ma'am, I know that you're upset, but I'm doing my job just like you're trying to get your work done, and I want to serve you. Can you please not speak to me with profanity? Could you please treat me with respect? Please forgive me if I know we've done something to injure you, but please don't injure me as I'm trying to help you and assist you.
Right, and I think that's fair. Like if somebody, personally, I don't mind throwing a curse word out there now and then, and I know you don't like it, but I personally don't really feel like there's any real word that's off limits. Maybe there's one word, but and there's not. Most words aren't like off limits.
Well, I mean, when they're said in anger to someone trying to help you and you treat them like trash, I think that you don't have to curse to do that. By the way, I'm saying that my point is that you are denigrating somebody who's serving you.
Well, okay. So, and I will draw this distinction, right? I don't say you're a and then curse at them. I would say I'm bleeping mad.
Yeah.
It expresses the extreme anger that I may be experiencing at the moment without being pointed at a person. Now, I know that when you hear that, a lot of people don't listen to the words, they listen to the emotion, right? And so it's a lot of people they get the emotion and they don't necessarily get the logic or the reason behind it. And I'm always trying to push the logic and the reason. But the emotion comes out. And so, like, I get that if you requested, if you said, hey, listen, please don't curse at me, that would be more effective than saying, how dare you curse at me, or don't you dare think that you could say that to me, or something like that. So that request is a interesting concept.
Yeah, because I think that is because when you're angry and you're hurt people. And I think that you've got to get them to see you as a person who's on their side.
That's kind of funny because I just saw a TikTok today that says, hurty girls date hurty guys.
That is so true. And
like, why do they do that?
Well,
they don't know they're doing it.
They do that. They know they're doing it.
So they made the case that girls end up with the good guy in the end. They just date the other guys in the middle. And I'm like, that's
not
malarkey.
True. That's not true. And so citizens are not slaves, but treat everyone. And, that's something that Trump has done a terrible job at.
What's that?
Civil rights. He has not. I'm not talking about civil rights when it comes to black people.
Right.
I'm
civil rights in general.
I'm talking about.
He treats everyone equally bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking about when you start saying things like America first. It should be, we are. I used to bow to people at one of the places I went to, and they'd always ask me, "Why are you bowing to me?" I said, "Because we're all royalty." And we respect each other. I know.
Okay.
It was my way. It was. I know.
It's
it
fine.
bothered you.
You want to do that? That's fine.
Well, I'm British. I mean, you need to. But my point is that you treat each other with respect and honor. You honor each other. And I think that when you get to that point where you want to honor people, like the Ritz-Carlton people clearly want to do, that's where, even if you're a jerk,
right,
when you're on the clock. You're not a jerk because the company culture says
right.
You honor each other, not because the customer comes first.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've picked up, I do customer service, and I have picked up some really great things from customer service, things that in my daily life I like to say. Like if somebody says thank you, I will say my pleasure, right? And that obviously comes from Chick-fil-A, but it made it into the culture at a place that I worked at, so we started saying that. The CEO actually had mentioned that as a really great way of answering clients. And I used to do everything that I could to make a customer happy. And that usually meant solving their problem in a more imaginative way than some of my coworkers would be willing to do. And then, of course, I know that I did that. And the reason that I know that I did that is because my manager told me to stop it. Because they said, David, you're setting a level of expectation that other people aren't going to meet. And I'm like, well, how about we have them all meet it?
Well, in my work, when I'm an artistic director, and when I'm working as an artistic director, my job is to make sure that everyone that I service is in service, and somehow that sounds perverse, but everyone that I service is extremely happy. I've become so good that my claim to fame is once my boss said, you know what? I would like you to travel with my wife as her supporter. Just you two. And my point is that,
hey,
listen, that's how good, and he would be right to do so, because when I serve,
right.
When I serve my clients, I serve them to the best of my ability. And they know that I'm not just in it for the money. I'm in it to make sure that your life is easier because I walked in the room. And I think that that's what the police have to be. When the police are, listen, because there are times when the police need the help of citizens.
Right.
See that one black police officer
Hey,
who was being
there-
accosted by those five white people?
I said, what would Moses do earlier? I would be just as willing if I saw police. Like, there was a case, it's happened a long time ago, but Los Angeles, there were some bank robbers that had full body armor and AK-47s, and the police were pinned down in Los Angeles by these for a long time in a huge firefight, and I think they eventually got away. I would come into that fight on the support and on the side of the police. I would support them, and they would have a great ally in that particular fight because, first of all, I would be able to maneuver without drawing the attention of those bank robbers. They would not realize that I was positioning myself to assist the police.
And that's the issue. Police officers should always be able to deputize citizens when they need to.
Yeah.
Because we're all on the same side. We are citizens helping citizens, serving citizens. And that's what police don't recognize. Because the thin blue line, there's not enough of you to go around. That you see that black police officer
Right.
being accosted by those 5 or 6 white people. If he were known to be, no man, whatever his name is, he's all right. Leave him alone, man. He's a good guy. If he were known to be that in that community, some probably would in the crowd would say, no, leave him alone. He's okay. Even the KKK, at times, will stop bothering a black person if someone in the KKK says, no, that N-word is okay. Leave him alone. He's okay. My point is that if you can see people for who they are and learn and get along with people, even those who are sworn against you will still say, you know what, no, this one's okay, leave him alone. And that's what I'm saying to your police officers listening to our show.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I'll go back to that, those statistics I was hearing earlier. 40% of police officers never have a complaint.
Yeah.
Never, ever have a complaint. And the vast majority will only have, will have under 3 complaints, and then a small minority has the vast majority of the complaints.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to start looking at that. We need to take a look at that and say, listen, like, if you're a particularly bad apple, get the heck out. We don't need so many police officers as we need good police officers, and that's really important.
Because if you're a good police officer,
Yeah.
you can deputize citizens.
Don't get me wrong, the Karen memes are running rampant right now, and I totally get the idea that if we start looking at complaints as the main metric, that there will be Karens that pop up and be like, oh, well, I'm going to make a complaint about this police officer. But you have to trust the statistics and so forth.
But
if you're
d-
doing
wait-
a good job.
Wait, hold on a second.
What's
Remember, wait. Do you remember, did I talk to you about that? We haven't met for a while, but you saw the video about the black bird watcher, that guy who was watching birds? Did you see that one?
Yes, I remember, but I don't remember what happened. Go ahead
Okay.
and refresh my memory.
All you see is him saying, hey, listen.
Oh, the two
Yeah,
Karens in the park
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
That's what people are calling it. I don't
Two
really,
Karens, and he is he might be a little punkish, saying, you know what, you have to curb your dog hair.
Well,
And she says, get away from me, stop bothering me. Then she starts to come close to him. And
Right.
she says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call the police and say there's a black man bothering me. And then she does it. You see her doing it. And he's filming her. And she says, go ahead and film me.
That
and you
is-
see her doing that. And
now I will. The one thing that he did, if he hadn't done this one thing, he actually carries dog treats so that he can basically mess with dogs that are not on leashes. Like this is his pet peeve. He's been upset about this for a long time, and he intentionally messes with people who don't have that. Like, he is the your dog's not on a leash male Karen.
Police.
Right. He's
Yeah.
he's the Jerry. So this is a Karen versus Jerry episode,
And he actually does.
Right.
He gets her because she doesn't curb her dog, and then she has the audacity to say, as a lot of women do with men, I'm going to use the police to beat you.
right, and don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a hero in this story, quite frankly, and that's why I haven't really talked about it online.
I
or
believe
brought it
there's
up
a
anywhere.
hero. I believe that she had no right using the police, and then she came
Oh
toward
no,
him.
she's a villain, but I think he's also a bit of a villain. The thing is, like,
if her dog was my point, yeah, I agree with you. If her dog wasn't biting you or anything,
right.
don't be a punk. Leave her
Yeah,
alone.
I mean, he's complaining about a thing that is a technical violation of the rules, but isn't really causing anybody a problem. It just he doesn't like it.
yeah,
and I'm like,
so he's a little punkish. I'll give it to you. But
Yeah.
my point is that the fact that she wanted to use the police to beat him, to reprimand her,
that goes.
that is a major problem, and that it was so nicely shown on video.
I did like that, but there's actually been a lot of videos that show that where, and actually I think there are better examples of it where, like white people want to call the cops on black people, and the black person is literally doing nothing wrong, like absolutely nothing. There is a video that came out recently of two like kids trying to do something on some stairs, like skating or biking or something, and they were like jumping down, and literally a woman named Karen like comes up to them and starts messing with them. You can't be here. You can't do this. And they're like, we're going to do it anyway. And they make the jump while she's there. And they're like, hey, listen, we told you to get out of the way, but you know, and then they leave. Like, yeah, it's amazing, but there's some, and she's calling the cops. And then there's another one. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but there was like, a black person just walking down the street, and a white person wanted to call the cops on him, and I can't remember exactly the crazy justification, but I mean, we've seen this is happening, and here's the thing, the cops are responding to these calls, and I really feel like we need to get to the point where we say, is there a crime being committed? Well, I don't like what they're doing. If there's
She
no crime
lied
being
and said
committed.
there was a crime. She said this black.
Right.
Did.
Yeah, she did.
She did.
Well,
this black guy. Yes, she did. This black guy is so and so. Help me! My life's in danger. Help me! She actually said that
Her
while he
life's
was
in
filming
danger.
her. And my point, yeah. And this is what white people, what women have done,
Well,
what men have done.
let's not
What men
not
have
blame
done.
the whole tribe, shall
No,
we?
I'm not saying everybody, but what I said, women. I said what men have done.
I get that, but I mean that's the natural tendency of people
To
is to have
tribalism.
that tribal.
That's what men
blame.
have. I said white people. I said
Right.
women have done. I said what men have done because I have members who've had men try to get them arrested for crimes. Really, and these are women. You know,
Well, now,
that's what companies do.
I will say this: there's actually
David. Calm down, David. What are you doing? You're not doing anything. Calm down, David.
I've had that happen to me
Calm down, David.
at the gym.
I'm going to call the police.
At the freaking gym.
I'm going to call the police, David. And so
And the guys, I'm like, listen, you can't be that fragile if you work at a gym. There's a lot of big people that come to gyms. Like, I mean, like seriously, I had that.
David,
at a
David,
major chain.
lower your
as a matter
voice,
of fact.
please. You're making
Yeah.
me feel uncomfortable.
Oh.
Calm down.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Calm down.
You know what I did raise my voice, but you know what I was doing? I was asking for the corporate number so I could call and complain about him. And that's when he started doing that nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in fear. I'm scared. You're scared because I'm asking for the corporate number? To me, if I was the corporation and I found out about that, and by the way, it was LA Fitness. If I found out that one of my managers started acting that way after somebody asked for the number to call corporate, I'd fire him. Because if you're afraid that somebody's calling the corporate number, you don't deserve your job anymore. Like, that's it. Like, you're done with me.
You know, I mean, we have lost our collective mind when it comes
yeah.
to treating each other with respect and dignity, even when you're wrong. That's amazing. Even when you're wrong, I am to treat you with the utmost respect and dignity. And then when you're acting like a punk, I can say, you know what? you are not behaving the way we expect a citizen to behave.
I'm just going to point out you're saying that, and I really appreciate that you're saying that. But I would maybe still call somebody Karen and yell at him a little bit.
Oh, yeah, listen, sometimes you need to yell at someone so they understand that they're out of order. And
Oh, yeah.
then once you understand that, then you can say, see, listen, I just wanted to shock you. My voice is toning down, and I want to say, blah 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 blah. I just think that and I can't say this enough. We need to treat each other with honor and respect and mutual concern and dignity. Period.
I
But-
think this has been a great conversation, quite frankly. And I wanted to say a couple of things. What do you think about this? We're going to totally change step here and talk about something a little different for a second. Not because, only because I am
We're
actually
done.
a little bit tired of talking about this. And not with you, but like just in general, like I'm tired of talking about. But let me ask you about this angle of this whole situation. The Hong Kong protesters. Have you seen what they're doing and how like organized and well that they're? My goodness, these guys are like engineer level. Like they're bringing blowers, leaf blowers to blow the CS gas away. They're taking, like, I saw one guy basically disarm an incendiary device like on the spot. Like, it was amazing. He bends down, he knows exactly how to deal with it, boom, 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 and then he puts a bottle over it. It was a pretty amazing thing. And then, what do you think about the Hong Kong protesters versus, our protesters?
I believe that our protesters are allowing emotionalism and I want to say rightly so, to guide their steps, where professionals don't get angry, they get even. And I think that when you become a professional and you say, wait a second, this is what you have done, the proper reaction is for me to get you out of office. The proper reaction is for me to...
That's a tough one right there. That really is a tough one because we, I think the claim is that we have, and now maybe this is wrong, maybe this is not entirely accurate in all situations, but like you have a choice between the giant douche and the turd sandwich, right? Like, you end up with two choices that are basically party candidates.
I understand that, but my
Okay.
point is that
So,
the stick that power understands is the loss of it. The stick that that's and so
but the thing is, they
You-
have
you-
gotten used to oscillation, right? So that we're used to like, oh, we get a Democrat right now, and in 4 years we'll have a Republican, and then we'll have that for 8 years, and then we'll have 12 years of Democrat, and then we'll go back to 4 years of Republican, and then maybe 4 years of Democrat, and then we'll do 8 years of Republican after that. And it's just it's oscillation, and it's a matter of they want power. And they see the real obstacle to them having power is the other person running. It's not the people that they have to please. It's the other person running that they have to destroy. And I think that's become a real issue for politics.
So to answer your question, the Hong Kong riots,
Uh-huh.
I believe or protesters, because they're not rioting. In fact, when you call protesters rioters, that itself is inappropriate, because not everybody is rioting.
So I don't know if I've been slipping in this, but I
didn't say
definitely
you. I didn't say you have, but
yeah,
I'm
but
saying,
I haven't been watching myself. I definitely try to say that a rioter is the person that's doing the violence, like burning down a building,
Yeah.
breaking windows, stuff like that. And protesters are everybody else,
Yeah.
right? Everybody that's not committing a crime is a protester.
Exactly. And so when you see the protests, I think the I think it's very scary for the powers that be to have their devices dismantled so expertly and so
Yeah.
thought out without any counter violence. And so you throw You throw a incendiary device, they defuse it.
There was one guy I saw a video of that I thought, reached that level, and they had basically launched like a low velocity CS gas grenade, and so you heard the whoop, like a whoop, whoop. I'm not sure if I'm making the sound very well, but you can tell that sound, and it kind of is a lob arc, and then they saw basically kind of an on fire object that was creating a lot of smoke was coming in a perfect like artillery arc, and the guy just kicked it right back to the cops. It was a beautiful shot. It's the only thing like what I've seen in Hong Kong that I saw in our protests. But you've got to have a couple of really skilled people in the crowd.
You have to prepare for civil disobedience and civil unrest.
Well, let me say this too.
Has to be well thought out. I mean, you just can't be upset and burning down buildings, guys. I mean, I do feel those who are doing it, whether you're organized crime or just malcontents, you're not helping your point. The reason that that Martin Luther King did such a great job is that all of his protests were nonviolent.
Right, and here's the thing: like, I was actually really looking forward to protests, but I feel like we didn't get the protests I was looking forward to, and I haven't necessarily gone to them, but I definitely support protesters and not rioters, right? So, like, whatever, if you're doing this and you're peacefully assembling out there and you're, line dancing or whatever, I support you 100%, just like I would have supported and was going to support and show up to protests where people were protesting the fact that businesses are being shut down. And I think that we really need to get back to that point.
Oh, definitely.
As a nation, we need to hey, what happened to all the businesses that are still shut down? Let's get them completely open. And I think actually this will likely what's the word I'm looking for? Facilitate that, because you have all these crowds. If COVID's really a big problem, in 2 weeks we'll know. If COVID is a huge issue and this is going to cause a lot of people to get sick and go to the hospital, 2 weeks from now we will know that for a fact. And if 2 weeks from now we are in any way unclear about that, then I would say that we then would know for a fact that it is not the issue that they said it was. I think, we have actually done a show on this. We have talked about this several times. And by the way, guys, like, now we're actually live streaming. One of the breakdowns that we had was me uploading videos, because I have attention deficit disorder, and I cannot take the time. I cannot pay attention for the amount of time that it takes to upload a video. So basically, Lou was like, "You gotta do something," and I was like, "Yeah, I really do." So I don't necessarily do everything Lou wants, but I figure out how to get Lou the results Lou wants, and this is how we're gonna do it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
No.
Okay.
Well, you definitely you pointed out that it was useless, and not necessarily what you said, but like you said some things to me, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, well, it doesn't really make any sense to do videos and record them if I can't ever get them up, and it takes a long time to do this.
It really does. Really,
a video,
and 1 hour is 4 hours, right?
An hour is 3 hours.
3 hours. 1 hour is
from
3
what
hours.
from what I've experienced, right? So like, it takes 3 times as long to upload something as it does to actually make it. And then, and so I'm like, oh man, I just can't. And I'm trying to do it during the day when I'm working. I stop paying attention. I close a window.
It's horrible.
It is. It's the worst thing ever. So I figure if we do the live stream and we say, I don't know exactly how this is going to work, right? But I suspect that we can do a live stream. It'll upload. I've seen that it is working, and so hopefully everything is going well. And I'll have to look at it later to see if this even worked today. But if it does, then that means this will be the thing, and we will be doing this. I haven't asked Lou yet, but I think we'll be trying to do this every Friday. But that we'll try to do a regular one, but Lou will will have to give the okay on which day. Let's put it that way. And Lou is, I've said this several times, Lou is a pearl maker.
Well, after we get out of the show, I want to show you, have you listen to some of my production work, so that we're thinking of a fun format for some of our shows. So I'm going to kind of work that out with him after the show. So we're going to have some funny things happening for you pretty soon.
Have you been using the sounds during the show? I'm perfectly fine with that.
No, I have not. I tried to use one. I didn't hear it. So after the show.
Oh, well, we're not hearing anything from, right? So, like, it can go through, and we won't hear anything. We don't hear. We have no monitor. We have no real time. The only reason I know that the sound is going is I see a little bar down here, and it is hitting the yellow and slightly touching the red, and that tells me that our audio levels are correct. That's all I know.
Well, we're going to do something. I'll let you hear it after we do the show. So let's close real quickly, and I'm going to show you some stuff, and it'll help us create more of a fun show for some of our subjects, because these have gotten really hot and heavy.
I got something I want to show you, too. I actually did buy myself a leaf blower. It is a protest leaf blower. And
wow.
if I ever went to a protest, I'd have a leaf blower with me.
Hey.
Because I think that was one of the coolest innovations of the Hong Kong riots or Hong Kong protests.
No gas, leaf blower.
Yeah, that's right. But actually, we've talked about CS gas a couple times. I think you and I have. I don't know that I've bragged about this, but like when I was in the Marine Corps, we went to the gas chamber.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, folks. It is not that bad. Now, the first time you experience it, maybe you'll be upset. But you see, the thing is, I ate spicy food as a kid. My dad used to love getting the hottest hot sauces and stuff like that. My aunt is from Texas. Well, she's not from Texas. She's from Florida, but she now lives in Texas. And so she sends us like the hot sauces from Texas, and we had the habanero, and we had the jalapeno, and we had all the great stuff. And when I got into the Marine Corps, to me that was just a spicy pepper. There was no In fact, my family said they could recognize me coming out of the gas chamber because I was the only one smiling. Everybody else was clearly not happy about this experience, and I was smiling from ear to ear.
Wow.
And just like, this is the best. But there was a reason for that. It wasn't actually the CS gas, although it was related to that. But our guide, who, is a guy I wasn't really too fond of, freaked out and gave us one of the best shows that I'd ever seen. Like, he's freaking out in there. He's like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And as he's saying it, he's taking these deep, deep breaths. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And so, I mean, at the same time, like, this is a contrast to this situation, right? So, like, the drill instructors actually had to, like, forcibly put his mask back on him. They were trying to help him out, and they put his mask back on him, and then they kicked him out, and they're like, "Oh, get out of here." But it was kind of funny at the time, because it was so over the top, and you could tell that he was breathing. Like, it was.
If you can say I can't breathe, you can breathe.
Absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, it was just something I've been thinking about the last couple of days because of this whole situation. But that obviously ended fine, and is in contrast to the way that this George Floyd thing worked out.
Next week, Louis and Dave's Riot Pack.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. How to riot well.
All right, guys. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure having you watch us, or if you're watching us later, it's a pleasure to have you. Go ahead and give us a comment. We'd love to see. We'd love to see it. We're going to start trying to grow the show and basically show that we're the best in the class. So we'll